Welcome back. This is episode 6 of Heartfire Sessions and episode 3, the third part of my talk with Swami Champak. I know some of you have been really looking forward to seeing more of this one. I made this one a bit longer. This is almost an hour worth of our conversation. I still have another hour at least worth of video to go. So there will be at least one more episode with Swami Champak after this one. I hope you enjoy it. In this episode, we got into talking about his leap of faith that he took when he went to India with $200 in his pocket on a one-way ticket. We're going to talk about what Kundalini Syndrome is. We're going to talk about when he met Master Choa Kok Sui, for those who don't know, is the founder of Pranic Healing. And we're going to talk about several other topics after that. So I hope you enjoy, stick around through to the end. And please, while you're here, hit like, hit subscribe. I can't even tell you how much that so helps me and my channel and helps more people see these videos. I hope you leave a comment, let us know how things are going in your life and what your thoughts and ideas are on this content. Let me know what you'd like to see more of. All right, that is all for now. So with no further ado, here is another almost hour of my talk with Swami Champak.
We don't have to overcomplicate things, and that's where we actually inhibit by overcomplicating. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
I find sometimes we get a little too much of a big head and a little ego involved when we complicate things too.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, that's all part of the whole thing of
Yeah.
this discovery, you know. Wow, that's really, the exuberance of, and after a while that passes, but we learn, but the enthusiasm, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
That's one of my favorite words, enthusiasm. You know, the source of it is Greek for the source of enthusiasm is entheos in Greek, and it means filled with God.
wow, wow,
Yeah.
yeah. Scientists have tried to figure this out,
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing about what is it, that holds the whole universe together, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so they've, electronic microscopes, all that kind of stuff going right down into the, nanoparticles, subatomic particles, right down into, you know, what is physical matter. And then it gets to a certain turning point where it's like there is no actual physical matter. It's
Mm-hmm.
all energy that's
Mm-hmm.
held in place that these physical particles uh, grow out of.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you keep on dissecting it, keep on taking it, what's behind that, what's smaller than, what's smaller than, what's smaller than, then it just becomes uh, what we kind of think of as electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just some kind of, so the so they've been trying to figure out, what's the best word to describe, what it is that holds all this whole thing together in the whole gigantic universe and everything. And the only word that really describes it is love,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, love beyond, what our human concepts, are of, it's that whole willingness to want to be in form, you know, that whole willingness of to be in creation, So this is why the most successful relationships and so on and so forth, you know, are with people that are continually building that with each
Mm-hmm.
other, continually supporting, you know, enabling, empowering, you know, totally there for you, there for me, being there for someone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then that enables them to succeed, and then what happens with that is they pull us on,
Mm-hmm.
we empower somebody, and that person goes out into the world. Well, we're like getting a mortgage investment interest payment because we enable that to happen, and so
Mhm,
we get pulled on, and so this is why our ancestors, this is how we can heal our ancestors, is
mhm,
by being successful in
mhm.
doing what it is that our ancestors didn't have the opportunity to be able to do, but had wished that they could,
I
you
love
know?
that. That yeah.
Oh, that really resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that one did, yeah. That was really good. I was
So
like,
that's how we
"Oh."
pull them forward, you know? I was like,
Yeah.
somebody did it. They did it. You know, they succeeded. Oh, thank you, you know? So this is how we heal our karma, our family karma, so on and so forth, is by being the change that we wish to see in others, you know?
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I got nothing better to do, eh? Really, you get right down to it. It's like, is there anything better, than to be, this positive force, this creative force,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm just having the time of my life. Just
Wonderful.
yeah, and I get oh my gosh, I get 200-300 emails a day, and then about the equivalent kind of thing on Facebook connection and stuff like that. And so kind of doing a kind of like a almost like a Dear Abby sort of thing. People are asking me these questions and stuff like that, and sharing the wealth. It's
Mhm.
like I have been gifted with having been delivered to so many enlightened beings. My
Mhm.
God, you know? And it all really, really started from way back there when I was 9 years old, and I, you know, accepted spirit realm, and I petitioned spirit realm, and I invited them to
Mhm.
operate through me. And
Mhm.
so it's like, okay, kid, you're on. And so yeah, my gosh, I mean, one was there. I was in India in the 70s. I had gone to India because I saw just like a 30-second little clip in some movie where these two Indian guys were sitting up on the Great Escarpment, which is like a big cliff in the central core of India. Where it was, and there's the escarpment is like the Grand Canyon, but with no wall over there. Anyways, and they were sitting there and they were looking out, and I was looking at this and I was going, wow, uh, I was there. It really pulled me in. And so at that moment, I have to go to India. It's like this
Mhm.
compulsion, so it's like, okay, well, got to get going. Well, there was a recession at the time, and just the money was so tight, and all I could afford was a one-way ticket
Mhm.
and $200 cash. I couldn't afford a return ticket because I would be totally without money. So I figured, well, at least I get there, I can figure out how to get back. And so you could travel in those days on a one-way ticket. Uh, so I just leap of faith. I just did it. Boom. And my destination that I'd been plant targeting on for a long time, it was like this mantra energy sort of thing, was the Theosophical Society in South India at Adyar. Um, it's their world headquarters, So I'm going there. Well, this is where a lot of these, amazing, highly evolved beings had lived in, and there's crypt there, Madame Blavatsky and Besant, all and Leadbeater, all this. They're all buried there and all this kind of stuff. And there's like a dozen different temples and churches on that. So it's like a university sort of thing. It's a
Mhm.
big place, couple hundred acres. Yeah. And so anyways, I get there and I'm in the cheap sheet, in the least expensive accommodations. Uh, and so middle of the night, I wake up and it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I gotta have a cup of tea. Well, I go, oh, wait a minute. Tea's a stimulant. You know, I need to sleep at night. not wake up and have coffee in the middle of the night so I can, no, but then I realized, no, there's something more to this. Okay, the message is gotta have a cup of tea. Okay. Then I began to feel like, okay, the proverbial carrot before the donkey. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like, okay, well, so let's do a cup of tea. Okay, don't have any way of making tea where in my sleeping room because they don't want any of that kind of electronic stuff or anything fire hazard, anything like that. Can't have any of that kind of stuff. Okay, so the kitchen. Well, the kitchen's all closed down for the night and the doors are locked and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not happening. Okay, the kitchen up at the main no, same thing. No, everything's all shut down. So I'm on my bicycle, so I figured, wow, hey, the guards down at the front gate,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they would have a pot of chai on. Sure, of course. So I'm riding down my bicycle and I'm beginning to hear this conversation, this argument going on between a Western woman and an Indian guard, and this woman is trying to, push her way in. She's already in, but she's trying to get, further in. Well, the guard is in this situation where it's like she's a woman, she's Western, she's white. He could get in trouble if he restrains her and she turns out to be some VIP, you know. But he could also get in trouble if he just kinda lets her just kinda come in and roam around, because it's
Mm-hmm.
his job to, you know, and so he's in this kind of difficult situation. So I cruise up on my bicycle, and he's so happy to see me because now he can hand this off. He can hand this hot potato off to because he knows that I'm there. "Okay, Papa, please, could you take care of this? Thank you, bye." He's gone. Perfect, you know? So I turn to her and I say, "So what's up? What's going on?" "I need sanctuary." Sanctuary, and then my hair just stood up on it, you know? I said, "Okay, you got it. Don't worry about it, you know? We tell me what's going on here. Here, sit down. You're protected, the guards are, you know, manning the gate. You're in the enclosure. You're in in the sanctum here, you know? Fill me in, please. Tell me what's going on." Well, she was a devotee of Osho, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh at the time, and she had, uh, that day been out on safari in a game preserve with
Mm-hmm.
a tea plantation owner. She was guest at his house, and so they were out in this, Land Rover with a game warden and the 2 of them in the back, and their vehicle got attacked by a rogue elephant that went rogue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the game warden was just, like, out of his mind because he had never ever seen this happen, It just doesn't happen because the elephants know that they're in a sanctuary,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so they're on 2 hours, they were pinned in this vehicle with this elephant ramming, And
Oh.
finally this guy turns to her and says, "It's all your fault." And she goes, "What?" And he admits that he had a history of poaching elephants when he was economically desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, "Well, why is it my fault?" She says. And he says, "Because her link, her connection to this great teacher, she is so illuminated, her presence, that the elephants can see him because he's the corruption in her Buddha field.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas prior to this, the elephants couldn't see him because he was energetically cloaked enough. But because he was in her Buddha field, this corruption, that's the guy. There he is. Let's get him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. So this takes us back to this earlier thing about aligning ourselves with teachers,
Mm-hmm.
because we come under their umbrella. So if they have some taint going on in them, stuff like that, then, we become tainted. And those work on become, it's just like when you drop a drop of gasoline onto a pond, like on a swimming pool, the surface, flat surface. It just goes and it just spreads out thinner and thinner and thinner, to the atomic level where that, one little drop of gasoline, oil, whatever like that will just cover the whole surface. So it has that effect, and similar effect. And so, anyways, so they got out of that obviously because here she was hours later, But what had happened was after they had gotten out and they'd gone back to his place, uh, he was really disturbed. And so in the middle of the night, there he was over top of her with this knife, just about ready to plunge it into her heart.
Oof.
Because he realized that he had given away his deep secret and that she knew. And so now his whole empire could crash if she reported him. And so he was, again, he was, so this is where this whole thing about, when we do a lie, how it just keeps on generating, it creates its own monster, so that's why it's always best to be impeccable all the time, because any kind of corruption we do, it'll come back to bite us. It'll magnify it, it'll keep on growing, so it's like a cancer sort of thing, And so here he is, now he's trying to put this fire out, by silencing her. But then he's realizing, but that's murder, and so he's in this whole thing, so she opens her eyes, sees him, and he's hesitating, and she says, without fighting him, because if he had fought her, then it could have gone into this whole thing and he could have done it, but because she was being uh, non-aggressive, she said, just be aware of what you are doing. God. Now she's demanding that he go to his higher self and be aware of what it is that he's doing. I mean, what an answer to really diffuse the situation, just kick him upstairs. It's like, wow, total override. And now he's really in a mental mess. And so he's stumbling around what to do now. And so she took advantage of that opportunity and grabbed her stuff, jumped out the window and ran for her life. And was just pounding on the gates, let me in, sanctuary, because this guy was like right behind her down the road of it, chasing her, you know. So, so I said, well, she was a devotee of Osho, you see. So he had woken me up in the middle of the night to get a cup of tea because someone was needed down at the front gate to let this person in, you know. And so this is what happens when we, develop these relationships with Osho, with Master Choa, with all these great beings, Karmapa, Dalai Lama, so on and so forth and so forth. All these people that have umbrella of protection. And there's so many cases of this with Master Choa, saving people, like there's this classic case there was a bombing in a discotheque in I think it was in Bali, some years ago. And there was an event, pranic healing gathering happening in Australia. And so this guy wanted to go, and so he just was going to hop a flight and go to the thing in Bali, and be back the next day, whatever like that. And so Master Choa phoned him and told him not to go. Okay, well, but right out of the blue, so he didn't go. And that discotheque had a bombing happen and a lot of casualties. So this guy was really grateful to Master Choa for, basically intervening, saving his life, because, and so that's what happens when we come under the umbrella of the protection of the guru, especially guru, because when I met Master Choa in the 90s, he did not want to be guru. Because
most true gurus do not want to be gurus.
Yeah.
If you meet a guru who really wants to be a guru, he's probably not a real guru.
There's a sign.
It's a good like little litmus test.
Yeah, what's their ulterior motive here for this, you know? And
Yeah.
so he did it for us, you know, he because we needed it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, so that's why, you know, I call this the accelerated path,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because we've incarnated. Now what are we gonna do with it? Are we gonna continue living the way we are, or are we gonna get into the books? You know? So it's
What
like,
else did that mean for you? Getting into the books. What else did that mean to you?
well, literally the books, you know, because I had this wonderful library. It
Mm.
was a small library, but I remember one day I just went to my library in the living room. Wife was in the kitchen, and I was just pulling a book out of off the bookshelf, and I was just about to open it and read it. It was in one of the theosophical books, and
Mhm.
I hear this voice from the kitchen, "What are you doing?" She could feel it.
This is she was yeah, apparently those books were a huge part of your purpose in life,
Yeah,
and she was being a hindrance.
yeah, and so my
Mhm.
wife could feel where I was going with my intention. I'm gonna take the book, and I'm gonna go in, and I'm gonna explore, and I'm gonna go into this realm of what's in the books here, what the
Mhm.
books have to offer. And for her, this was terrifying for her because
Mhm.
she wasn't ready for this journey. Because not everybody's ready to really, you know, get on with, you know, with the big picture of life here and so on and so forth,
Mhm.
you know? And so, I mean, you know, I gotta be compassionate, you know, with her about that, you know, that it was just like way beyond her, you know, her pay grade, you know, call it that.
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
And so it was really frightening, you know. So this is why we don't expose little children to you know, stuff that's going to overpower them. We protect them because they're not ready for it yet. You
Mhm.
know, so this is why this whole practice of what I love, really love about the pranic healing system is this whole graduating thing, because some people are ready to go right to the top right away, you know, but those are very few,
I met
you know.
one of those. There's a girl in she was from Kelowna. I'll leave her name out because I don't know if
Yeah,
she wants herself mentioned, but this one girl who came to the Arhatic yoga prep class was my second one that I'd been to. And she had just done her basic pranic healing class 3 weeks before and decided to
yeah,
apply for Arhatic yoga. And she was accepted to it. And
yeah,
she's really a gem. My husband and I love her so much. And we've had her come to visit our house and stuff for a while. She stayed on our couch for about a week. And we just adore her. But she's one of those people who already has enough spiritual advancement in past lives and in her own life, and just because of the quality of her heart, and that she is very ethical, and that she doesn't have any corruption to mess things up. So she was like, all right, you just did basic pranic healing 3 weeks ago, but you're ready, so let's go for
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that happened with me with the it was AY5 class, and um, it was very early days, and Master Choa was just really pushing the teachings, you know,
Mhm.
and um, things were kind of wide open, you know, for doing it, and they put more restraints on it later, you know, because it had to be. In those days, there was no time limit. You know,
Mhm.
you could.
Mhm.
And so someone in the class got up and asked in front of the whole class, asked Master Choa, why is Champak even allowed to be here in this class? He doesn't do the meditations. We don't see him doing the breathing exercises, all this kind of stuff, yada, 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 this whole complaint. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I mean, I wasn't, you know, didn't take affront with it. You know, I was just like, you know, that person's got something going on, whatever, you know, but they were really, really upset, you know.
Mhm.
So Master Cho just looked at me and then addressed you know, the whole class, gave his answer. Why is Champak allowed to be here? And he said, karmic entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody got it. And I'm going, karmic entitlement.
Everybody except Champak got it.
Huh, what an answer.
You're like,
Gosh.
what does that mean?
Because I'm living it, and it's because that's what happens when you're in the zone. It's like oftentimes we're not really aware that we're in the zone because we're just there. We're just
Mm-hmm.
doing the the work, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was kind of like this almost odd entertainment sort of thing to get challenged like this. I was like, wow, really? That's an issue? Huh? News to me. You know, 'Cause I'm you know, 'cause I'm there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Also really good opportunity for me not to get like an inflated ego about it, like, "Oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a made man," and all that, which I have seen in so many of these other movements, where
Mm-hmm.
people stop doing the work
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a made man. I'm with the teacher. I don't have to do anything more, So it's like, I've arrived, I've got the teacher's blessings. Just kick back and relax here now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why a lot of these teachers they'll just suddenly be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Their life just like they pull the rug out from under us, you know,
Yeah.
because it's to wake us up, you know.
Yeah.
So this is why when I met Osho, when I met Master Choa, I was so primed
Mm-hmm.
because I'd had all this experience with Osho and Karmapa and Dalai Lama and Lama Oli and all these initiations with all these people and had these experiences with them and so on and so forth. And so and here's this teacher that's so available because he's just starting out. He's just stepping out of the Philippines and he's just coming to America, Canada at the time, just starting his whole worldwide movement out,
Mm-hmm.
So so yeah, so we went outside and him and I we sat under a tree together for 2 hours and we just kind of interviewed each other and just talk big picture like you and I are doing right now, you know,
Mm-hmm.
big picture about the whole thing. And um and he was exploring, you know, the other practices. What were their successes? What were their failures? And
Mm-hmm.
so he was studying that so
Mm-hmm.
as not to duplicate the failure. So he was
Mm-hmm.
benefiting from, where it was that why are these things no longer working? Why are they no longer viable? So what happened? And so he was picking my brains because I had been living through a bunch of this stuff. I'm firsthand sort of witness, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So he was really curious, to know the dynamics of what were the nuts and bolts. How did you know everything work, on the practical level. Because he was a trained scientist, uh, chemical engineer, so he understood the whole scientific process.
Mm-hmm.
So he was studying that. So yeah, so I realized that this is the golden opportunity to get in really close to the teacher. So I made it a personal project to you know to get Master Joe to love me. You know, like, I was like, because I knew this, because if we get into that kind of relationship with a teacher, that the teacher really cares about you on a personal level,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna really watch out for you
Yeah.
because we're dear to their heart, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so they take a special interest in us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to bring him ginseng and pine nuts and goji berries and all that kind of stuff and put little dishes when he was sitting there, you know, uh, teaching a class. And so you know, because I was, because I could
Mm-hmm.
just, before he got up on the stage, I could get up and I could walk over and like, go up on the floor beside us and put stuff there, and nobody is. Oh, that's just Champak. He's okay. Yeah, and nobody would question my
Mhm.
motives.
I
Because I
could
was
kind of like I can kind of like hear some people that probably didn't have the wherewithal to say it out loud, but I bet there were a few people every once in a while who just kind of like took a little ego issue to it.
oh yeah, sure, sure. All that kind of stuff was going on, and the thing is I was non-reactive to all that stuff.
That's the key right there.
That's the key right there.
Is not being is be like they can think whatever they want. I know my heart and why I'm doing it, and that's what matters.
Being true to thyself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then following that initiative, and then like I had like total motivation, for doing this because the more that I can make it easier for the teacher to teach, the
Mm-hmm.
more that the class is gonna benefit,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? And so we're gonna get lifted, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I kept on asking us, "Did I say something? Shall we continue?" And he was checking the class to see, are we still there or are we kinda getting zoned out that we can't function anymore because of the the exposure of the immense radiance?
Mm-hmm.
So we had to really, like, learn how to anchor in and keep grounded while we're having the the doorway thrown open before us and the secret teachings of all ages being revealed to us and
Mm-hmm.
not us get blown away by it, and
Mm-hmm.
be able to hang on to our seats, while we're
Mm-hmm.
on this roller coaster ride.
That kind of brings me back around to something you mentioned earlier that I thought I should ask about, because there's a lot of people out there who might be watching who might not have any idea what it is, and that is Kundalini Syndrome.
Oh yeah, yeah. So Kundalini syndrome. Yeah. So this is we have what's called the spiritual cord, the silver cord. It's an energetic cord that goes down our spinal cord, right?
Mhm.
And so in deeper esoteric, it's called the antakarana. Right? And now there can be like several strands to this. Right?
Mhm.
And so different sciences and so on and so forth. So in one of Master Choa's books, he shows picture of the Dalai Lama with this big, strong spiritual cord and this big, thousand petal lotus uh, uh,
Mhm.
uh, crown chakra, and then the Karmapa and the Rinpoches and so on, so similar sort of size, and then it goes down to a master, and so the cord is smaller and the flower is smaller, and then it goes down to student, and then it goes down to like a neophyte, a very, and in the series of pictures there, the most undeveloped one is it's barely the thickness of a thread of hair.
Mhm.
Okay, so so this is why we have to be careful with empowerment, you know,
Mhm.
because and classic case of this is the drugs that people take these days, these
Mhm.
highly refined drugs, and people oftentimes they're doing drugs because they want to get spiritually. They want to get spiritually evolved and but they don't realize that it's such a powerful stimulant that it's literally burning out their neural pathways in their brain. Like
Mhm.
they can damage themselves so much from this stuff,
Mhm.
that it's really not advisable to to try and mix the two together. You know?
Mhm.
And so so anyway, so what was going on was as we evolve, that cord gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger, then we're able to do it's like a muscle builder, like a weightlifter, able to lift greater and greater weights because we have developed the physique. And so the Kundalini syndrome is this fire like energy that travels up and down this column. So one of the great beauties of pranic healing method is it activates the Kundalini from the top down.
Mhm.
So we develop our higher chakras, our crown chakra and our heart chakra, because the two of them are so related. And so that's why I came out with Twin Hearts meditation, because we have two hearts. We have the heart in the physical heart, and then we have the heart of our basically our pineal gland.
Mhm.
And so and they're but the both of them need to, like, the physical heart needs to be open for the crown to be open. Yeah.
Mhm.
So so anyways, so that's why forgiveness and so important. Whereas in other practices, in tantra practices and so on, it's oftentimes it's from the bottom up. So
Mhm.
activating the sex chakra, activating what they call the lower chakras, and then creates this fire, and then it rockets up, and then pow, like when a person orgasms, their head just kind of explodes, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Well, that's not sustainable over the long run if the wiring is not s- big enough, you know.
Mhm.
So this is why we need to develop our inner core, and so why it's actually why we do the exercises, when we're doing our practices. But it's also why it's really important to have a good physique, be in good shape, go out, do running, do jogging, so on and so forth. Do whatever it is to strengthen the whole physical package, so that
Mhm.
we can handle this energy and
Mhm.
not literally burn out. Well, there I was doing the bilocating the energy from from these 3 billion people. Just like, you know, and I wasn't really fully thinking it through, and so I got a bit of diarrhea,
Mhm.
because of from the Kundalini Syndrome, which is one of the symptoms. You know,
Mhm.
uh, and but I was fortunate that I didn't burn. You know,
Mhm.
which is what can happen when people go into. So this is why some of the practices that Master Choa he redacted them out because they were too powerful for the uh, lesser initiated sort of people,
Mhm.
and because they weren't ready. Yeah. So this is why I was having trouble with my first wife, and so because she wasn't ready to really take on or be in this sort of roaring inferno of energy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so we were not matched.
Mhm. So
And
compatibility.
yeah, compatibility. Yeah,
Mhm.
So so the thing to do when we have so what I love about pranic healing is there's these built-in safeties. So like
Mhm.
the Twin Hearts meditation, that actually prevents us from getting Kundalini syndrome. Because
Mhm.
what we're doing is we're visualizing the planet
Mhm.
as we're calling in all this divine energy, and we're visualizing the planet and blessing the planet and having this excess energy flow out of us onto the planet,
Mhm.
so that we don't burn with what it is that we're connecting to. You know?
Mhm.
But we get purified,
Mhm.
because it's a self-cleansing sort of thing, and it takes us to our limit, you know, and then like the safety overflow, there's somewhere for it to go, and so it goes
Mhm.
to the planet. And we
Mhm.
don't, you know, keep it contained within ourselves and then kind of internally explode, sort of thing.
Mhm.
To put it in those terms, you know. So this is where we can really safely work this kind of big stuff
Mhm.
and not hurt ourselves doing it. So
Mhm.
by regularly doing Twin Hearts meditation or some equivalents, like there it is. Oh, a siren goes off. Oh, blessing the siren, blessing, you know, that siphons off, some of this overflow,
Mhm.
so doing blessings to hospitals, that's
Mhm.
another one. Oh, wow. That can take all you got. Sort of thing, and it's so gratefully accepted, and gratefully needed, you know.
Mhm.
So we can do that distant, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, so one of my practices that I've been doing for 50 years, I guess, is the great invocation on bridges whenever I
Mm.
go across a bridge. You know? And so I kind of lay it down and so that it anchors in the bridge there. And right at the apex, the peak of the bridge is where I do um, the Om mantra. And then to all the directions, up, down, forth, back, and all around, so on and so forth. And I just kind of create like a ball of energy that it be there. And so I was doing this for a long time, and then a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, Champak, what about all the people that are committed suicide off of bridges? Don't you think that maybe that what you're doing might be attracting these people?" I went, "Wow, that's a really interesting question.
Mhm.
Well, I've got this friend. I'll ask him." So Master Choa. So I asked him about this. So
Mhm.
his answer to me was perfect. He says, "Which is better when a person commits suicide? Which is better? If they do it in a sacred place or a place that's not sacred?
Mm.
A place that's blessed or a place that's not blessed if they end the life?" Wow. Yeah, I get it. So it's like, continue, keep doing it,
Mhm.
'cause it's their choice, what they're doing, so on and so forth. You know? Well, so some years ago, I got an invitation kind of out of the blue to a dinner party. You know? So I go to this dinner party, and it's just local sort of event, somebody's house. It's just a small group, maybe 10 people, something like that.
Mhm.
You know? And that came up of all things to talk about around the dinner table
Mhm.
was the story of blessing, doing the great invocations on the bridges.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting, like how it earlier was, how, I mentioned mortgages and you say, okay, I got to interrupt you for a moment here. It's like, maybe you don't know this, but I do mortgages. How these things just kind of like, you know,
It was
we
like,
get in the
"Oh,
zone there.
amazing." It was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting." He caught that, picked up on that psychically without even knowing it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's just how we roll, and
Mhm.
that's when we get those things happening, then that's an indication to us that we're going in the right direction.
Mhm.
We're doing the right things here. So I start talking about doing the great invocation on the bridges, you know, and the host puts his knife and fork down, and he's like totally focused on me, and he's what, and he says, and in the moment he says, "Okay, you're the one I've been looking for."
Mhm.
'Cause I felt that on that bridge, and I have been looking for you for 5 years.
Wow.
He had been tracking me because he was a mortician, and he was in Vancouver at this morticians convention. The mortician, that's the people that take care of putting the body in the coffin and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, those people are oftentimes really special people because 'cause they're dealing with, and a lot of times that the body isn't that the soul isn't completely detached from the body yet, you know?
Mhm.
And so I love talking to these people about these kinds of things, because of what their observations are and so on and so forth, and that's a whole 'nother story in itself. But anyways, so what had happened is he had gone for a walk, and he was walking across the bridge, and he walked right into that energy field that was there, you
Mhm.
know? And it's like, "Wow, what is this? Somebody put this here.
Mhm.
Where does this originate from?" So he was tracking out the tentacles of trying to where's the source to this, you
Mhm.
know? So he just took a sabbatical from his job in San Francisco and just stayed in Vancouver and then just moved around, rented places, trying to find, that game we play as kids, cold, warm, warmer, warmer, hot, you know?
Yeah.
So he was just kinda doing that, where he's groping around in the dark trying to find me, you know?
Mhm.
Well, because my presence is so, big in this area here, he could feel me in Vancouver, even though I don't live in Vancouver, I live 100 miles away. He could feel my presence in Vancouver, I'm anchored in there. well, because I've incarnated there for so many times before it was Vancouver, because it's like something like 25,000 years that civilization has lived here in this Salish Sea, and kind of like the Nile Delta. That's a whole nother vast story in itself. And and I remember parts of that. So anyway, so he eventually tracked it down, me down to warmer, hot on the Sunshine Coast, and so he was renting a house there, and so trying to meet, and so he just started putting out feelers for dinner parties,
Mhm.
interview, just to have uh, um, extraordinary guests over for dinner, you know, and hoping that he would meet me, and so somehow the invitation got out to me via the network, and so he says, "I've been looking for you for all this time
Wow.
because I felt this," and so this is the effect that when we do these things, how it ripples out, the ripple effect, you know, it goes out
Mhm.
into the airways. So so we had some one-on-one time, and got in and so I asked him, because he's a mortician. I said, well, have you come across these cases where for forensic reasons they exhume a body, for police, investigation, because sometimes they do that, like there's a mysterious death, and so they dig the grave, the coffin up some years later, because they want to pursue some forensic investigation of the cause of death. You know? And so I asked him about, as, and so what I was getting to is stories that I heard, and it does happen, but very rarely, where when they put somebody in a coffin, they do the standard, dress them up and make them look good and all that kind of stuff, cut their hair, trim the beards, and, shave them, et cetera, trim their fingernails, but occasionally what happens is they exhume, and it's like the corpse has now got really long fingernails, like not just, I've had this explained to me, oh, that's just the natural, body tissue retracting, and so the fingernails appear to be longer. No, protruding fingernails, like
Mhm.
really long, like a couple inches long, sort of thing, you know, full beard, all that kind of stuff. So that got me into, you know, so why is that, And well, that's why we have ghosts, and so, what's the reason why, you know? Uh, there's still some attachment to the body, you know?
Mhm.
So, okay, well, the evidence is right there that they're exhuming this for forensic. Okay, this person probably had a violent death. This person was,
Mhm.
probably, so it's not a happy, uh, not a happy soul. You know,
Mhm.
wants retribution, wants peace. And it's not going to be at peace until this whole thing is resolved.
Mhm.
So they maintain. So this is why, because this is another thing that I'm discussing on my site, building the golden yoga body, is about how time dilates, and they've sent some atomic clocks out into space, and then brought them back, and then compared them to the atomic clock here on Earth, and it's like there's a difference in the passage of the counting of time. So it's got to do with the gravity well of the planet, and
Mhm.
and and then in shaman time, like I would drum for somebody, and I'd drum for 2 hours, but there would be 2 hours, 2 weeks that the shaman would be in shaman time working on this client,
Mhm.
while I'm there just tapping away my drum for 2 hours. They're living 2 weeks, sort of thing. So this is why it's different when we contact with spirit realm, and it can be that's it's like hundreds of years,
Mhm.
have passed, since this person died, but uh, it's still fresh for them. So there's all these kinds of, it's all in flux and
Mhm.
flexible.
You know
So
what's
anyway, so
interesting is that happens, and Tony Robbins is not known for being a spiritual teacher. He's more of like a business and self-development person, but that happens in his events. you enter some kind of like time warp, and it's like you get a couple days in, and like you don't know what day it is, you don't know anything except you're there in the event, and you
Yeah.
go through so much emotion and stuff. As like sometimes when people
Yeah.
get done with the event and go back to regular life, there's an adjustment period that has to be there, because it's like you've been kind of in another universe for a few days,
Yeah.
and it's going to take a while to get back into regular life. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, some
Yeah.
people handle that transition really easily, whereas others are like sick for like a week when they get done with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened to my first wife and I.
Mm,
The very first second that I saw her, I was passenger in my friend's car, and we were going down a hill, and I happened to look down the street 2 blocks away, and I saw this girl, this teenage girl, and the moment I saw her, time completely froze. It's like push
mhm,
pause on the video thing here, and
mm,
I'm looking, and it's like I'm getting the message, I must get to know her and all this kind of stuff, whereas the vehicle is speeding along, and it's gonna be like, microsecond before she's out of view. But
mhm,
I was there for this protracted period of time,
mhm,
focusing at her, looking at her, getting the message that I gotta get to this significant player has just showed up in my view, and I must make the connection. And once
mhm,
I got to that place of, "Yes, I must do that," and then everything sped up again and down the hill we go. And so it's like and I'm left with the experience of time froze.
mhm,
However, so I was looking at that, and it's like, well, when we go into the super accelerated, um, um, quantum computing, that it's like whereas before we were, say, for example, on a scale of 1 to 100, we were thinking, uh, 10, you know, thoughts per second. Well, all of a sudden now we're into like 1,000 thoughts per second.
mhm,
And so we look at our clock and it's like the seconds are just ticking off like they're minutes, like they're hours, because we're in this hyper consciousness state. And
mhm,
so we're in this. And so it's a rare event
mhm,
to go into that sort of state of being where we are, and so it's a type of Kundalini activation, you
mhm,
know, where we are really on fire. Like,
mhm,
they call it. It's like, yeah, yeah. And so to do that on a regular basis, you know, that's gonna cause this building effect. So here's this guy,
yeah,
Tony Robbins, is doing this regularly,
yeah,
taking people into the zone. So it's like, so now he's walking around in this kind of permanently expanded state,
yeah.
you know, because that's the power of like the mantra that we were talking about earlier.
That's why I keep going back, is because I keep expanding every time I go back for another wave.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So anything that we can do that's gonna, super stimulate us, you know,
Mhm,
into, maxing our performance. I mean, we are honoring our birthright, the gift we
mhm,
have been given to incarnate, you know.
yeah.
So so this is why that old saying about an unexamined life is a life not worth living.
Mhm,
That's what that means. It's like we've been given this opportunity to really maximize, and it's up to us whether we're gonna activate that or not, you know?
mhm,
And so that's why it breaks our heart when, we meet somebody and then 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years later, they're the same person, you
mhm,
know? They haven't budged. They're still in that same stuck in the mud sort of thing that well, okay, oh yeah, well, they're not ready yet and all that kind of stuff, and then they die. Well, better luck next time, you know?
mhm,
So that and then it's also too why the Dalai Lama talks about why it's best for some people to die,
mhm,
because they are incurring so much bad karma. They're doing so much bad stuff that they
mhm,
are just making things worse and worse and worse for themselves for their incarnations forward, that
mhm,
it's better for them to be stopped, so that they don't increase this vast, huge debt load that they're gonna be, how many lifetimes is it gonna take them to pay that off, So
Yeah.
it's an act of kindness that it's just like,
Mhm.
"Oop, they're gone. Alright." At least they they don't have a bigger debt,
Mhm.
So that's one way of looking, at, because we have these questions. Why do these things happen to these people? You know?
Mhm.
And then also too, the other big classic one is why do bad things happen to good people?
Mhm.
Well, that's it. Because we finally arrived at a place where we can afford to pay off the debt.
Yeah.
You know? We couldn't do it in the last incarnation, in the last several incarnations, because we didn't have the awareness. We didn't have the consciousness yet. So it waits and waits and waits for us to get to that place where we're exalted enough that we can understand the errors that we made, and then that's when we start working on the redemption. You
Paying
know,
off the mortgage.
yeah, yeah, and so that's the time to really maximize your payment. And how can we do that? Well, by doing service. The more that we
Mhm.
help others, the more that we accumulate merit. The more merit that we accumulate, the more that we can apply that to the debt load,
Mhm.
and clean off our karma really quickly. You know,
Mhm.
so this is why these practices like pranic healing. I mean, I keep coming back to pranic healing because
Mhm.
it's just the best practice that I've ever found.
I love pranic healing too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's because of its all-encompassing, that was
Mhm.
designed to be all-encompassing, you know? And so this is why Master Choa took a look at all these practices that are really excellent for specific this, for specific that, and so on and so forth. And so
Yeah.
he garnered from all these, great jewels from all these things and put it into a holistic package so that it becomes an uh, all-encompassing practice that
Yeah.
takes care of everything.